We're good.
And there's Pam. So I'd like to call this meeting to order. Village Council regular public meeting, March 10th, 2021. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to Ridgewood News, the record, and by submission to all persons entitled to the same as provided by law of a schedule including the date and time of this meeting. Due to the fact that we continue to meet through a remote meeting format, there are some required announcements to be made. All participants are muted during this meeting. Anyone wishing to make comments may do so during comments from the public and during the public hearings on any ordinances by dialing *9 on your phones to raise your hand, and then once you are recognized, dialing *6 on your phones to unmute, or by raising your hand icon if you are on your computers. You must state your name and address for the record. Members of the public may also submit written comments to us for any future remote meetings by either email to Donna Jackson, Deputy Village Clerk, at djackson@ridgewoodnj.net with the subject line "Comments for Village Council Meeting," or written letter to Donna Jackson, Deputy Village Clerk, at Village Hall. Written comments must have a name and address and be received by 4 p.m. on the day before the remote meeting in order to be read into the record during the meeting. All written comments must adhere to the time limits already set by ordinance. Members of the public commenting during a remote meeting shall not act in any manner to disrupt the meeting. If anyone becomes disruptive during the meeting, they will be muted. If time permits, the disruptive individual shall be allowed to speak after all other members of the public are provided an opportunity to comment. Any continued disruption may result in the member being prevented from speaking during the remainder of this meeting. Disruptive conduct includes, but is not limited to, shouting, interruption, and the use of profanity. All right, roll call, please.
Councilwoman Perrin.
Here.
Councilwoman Reynolds.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Seaton.
Here.
Councilwoman Walsh.
Here.
And Mayor Newton.
Here.
Please join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the
and to the
republic
republic for which it stands,
one
a nation,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in a moment of silence for our servicemen and women and our first responders. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to acceptance of financial reports. I move the bills, claims, and vouchers and statement of funds on hand as of January 31st and February 28th, 2020 be accepted as submitted.
I'm sorry, that's 2021.
Yeah, I just read that. I thought
I
so.
apologize.
2021 be accepted as submitted.
Second.
Perrin.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Seaton.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
And Newton.
Yes.
I move the Village Council minutes of January 13th, 2021, having been reviewed by the Village Council and now available in the Village Clerk's office to be approved as submitted.
Second.
Perrin.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Seaton.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
And Newton.
Yes.
Okay, next up we have 3 proclamations. We'll start with Councilwoman Perrin to read the proclamation proclaiming March Red Cross Month.
Whereas the American Red Cross was established in 1881 and chartered by Congress in 1905 to act in times of emergencies, and whereas the American Red Cross is one of the nation's oldest and most recognized humanitarian organizations, and whereas local chapters provide compassionate care and immediate emergency service when disasters and other crises threaten to overwhelm families, and whereas the American Red Cross provides services such as health and safety and disaster preparedness training, emergency response assistance, reunification services for military families in times of crisis, and Holocaust tracing. And whereas the American Red Cross is a nonprofit, nationwide organization with a rich history spanning more than 130 years, which depends on the generous contributions of time, blood, and money from the American public to support its life-saving services and programs. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Village Council of the Village of Ridgewood does hereby proclaim March 2021 as American Red Cross Month in the Village of Ridgewood.
Great. Thank you, Councilwoman Perrell. Councilwoman Walsh will proclaim March Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month.
Before I read the proclamation, I just want to say that my sister is a cancer survivor. She went for just a routine test, and that's when they found her cancer that had already been advanced with no symptoms whatsoever. So before I read this, I just want to remind everybody to, for their own health and safety, to make sure that they get exams when their doctor recommends it. Whereas colorectal cancer is the second leading cause of cancer-related deaths in the United States, claiming more than 50,000 American lives each year. And whereas colorectal cancer is a major health concern for families in New Jersey, while anyone can get colorectal cancer, the risk increases with age, with 9 out of 10 cases occurring in people over 50 years old. And whereas colorectal cancer is preventable and treatable. And whereas the New Jersey Cancer Education and Early Detection Program, NJCEED program, provides comprehensive education, outreach, early detection, case management, screening, and follow-up in all 21 counties. And whereas New Jersey's statewide campaign to end colorectal cancer promotes education, awareness, and taking action against this disease. And whereas New Jersey's statewide campaign to end colorectal cancer encourages individuals, organizations, and health professionals in New Jersey to collaborate and partner on screening and educational awareness initiatives. And whereas this campaign is being conducted through the NJCEED program in the New Jersey Department of Health and Senior Services, with the overall mission of reducing colorectal cancer incidence and deaths, increasing colorectal cancer awareness and prevention behaviors, developing support partnership, and extending and reinforcing the core message of behavioral change. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Village Council of the Village of Ridgewood does hereby proclaim March 2021 as Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month in the Village of Ridgewood, New Jersey, and urges our residents to educate themselves about colorectal cancer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Walsh. Councilwoman Reynolds will proclaim March 21st through the 27th, 2021 as National Poison Prevention Week.
Thank you. Whereas Congress designated the third full week in March to be National Poison Prevention Week, NPPW, in 1961, and since then, this week has helped to raise national awareness of the dangers of potentially dangerous medicines, household products and chemicals, environmental contaminants, and other substances. And whereas poison centers across the country will focus the public's attention on the free, life-saving services provided by poison centers, as well as educating the public on ways to prevent poisoning exposures. And whereas the New Jersey Poison Control Center, a division of the Department of Emergency Medicine at Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School, provides 24/7 expert medical treatment advice, drug information, and prevention education at no cost to the public through the Poison Help Hotline. And whereas the New Jersey Poison Control Center's specialized medical professionals, doctors, pharmacists, and nurses provide accessible, free, and confidential poisoning medical treatment, advice, and information to all. And whereas the New Jersey Poison Control Center's services save healthcare dollars by eliminating thousands of unnecessary emergency department room visits and result in shorter lengths of stay for patients hospitalized for poisoning. And whereas the New Jersey Poison Control Center is instrumental in the surveillance and management of poisoning exposures across the state, including the use, misuse, and abuse of medications, legal and illicit drugs, environmental contaminants, bioterrorism agents, and common household products and chemicals. And whereas the New Jersey Poison Control Center is involved in New Jersey's efforts in homeland defense, counterterrorism, emergency preparedness, pandemic response, and biosurveillance. And whereas the COVID-19 hotline at the New Jersey Poison Control Center a collaboration with the New Jersey Department of Health, has assisted nearly 90,000 additional callers to provide up-to-date, unbiased, accurate information, as well as medical guidance and links to services. And whereas a poison is defined as anything that can cause harm if taken in the wrong amount, in the wrong way, or by the wrong person. And whereas unintentional poisoning is the leading cause of unintentional injury death in New Jersey, outnumbering deaths by motor vehicles and firearms. And whereas although most reported poison exposures involve children 5 years old and younger, most poisoning deaths occur in adults aged 20 to 59. And whereas overdose deaths from prescription opioids, over-the-counter medications, and illegal drugs remain at epidemic proportions for both New Jersey and the United States, while lead exposure and carbon monoxide poisoning remain major public health concerns. And whereas poison center experts encourage the public not to guess, wait for symptoms, or waste time looking up medical treatment online when potential poisoning exposures occur. Call 1-800-222-1222 or text 973-339-0702 or chat www.njpies.org. And whereas all residents should save the Poison Help Hotline in their cell phone, home, and office phones, because a fast response can make all the difference in preventing serious injury and saving lives. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Village Council of the Village of Ridgewood does hereby proclaim the week of March 21st through the 27th, 2021 as National Poison Prevention Week in New Jersey, and encourages all residents to pledge their commitment to ensuring the safety of themselves, their families, and their community.
Thank you, Councilwoman Reynolds.
You're welcome.
All right. Now we will go to comments from the public, not to exceed 3 minutes per person and 40 minutes in total. Dylan, do we have anybody?
Yes, we do. First person is Mr. Hallaby. Please unmute.
Yeah, Rorick Hallaby 374 Evergreen Place. My wife Cindy and I spent a couple of hours this afternoon delivering meals from Pearl Restaurant to Bergenfield. We both felt humbled by this wonderful opportunity to contribute in our own little way to help people with the terrible challenges they are facing. So a big shout out to the Health Barn Foundation for being instrumental in Ridgewood receiving $1 million to pay for over 100,000 meals to be prepared by some 16 Ridgewood restaurants to be served to so many people with food insecurity, which makes me think, when will the Village Council buckle down to issue the RPF so that Health Barn can find out if it is staying or leaving? It has been 6 months since the matter surfaced, and since then, little has happened other than seeing the can being kicked down the road. I realize municipal business matters move slowly, but this is ridiculous. Frankly, it is embarrassing. I understand that the Health Barn lease will be on the agenda for the meeting of 24 March. It is critical the matter be resolved at that meeting. I read the ruling issued yesterday by the appellate court panel and written by Judge Richard Geiger. I'm not sure what to say other than, once again, thanking the members of One Village, One Vote for a case that will go down in municipal history as to what good citizens can do to protect their rights. One Village, One Vote's achievements is worthy of a Harvard Kennedy School of Government case study. One small item in the ruling that caught my attention, and I quote, "The same day the municipal solicitor, Mr. Rogers, responded by email that it was a conflict of interest for him to answer Lindbergh's questions because it requested legal advice and he represented Ridgewood's counsel." This makes me think, While Mr. Rogers may represent the village council, he is in fact looking after the interest of Ridgewood's residents. We are in fact paying his cost, and it is our interest he should look after. My third comment concerns the disaster that is Shedler. When will the taxpayers of Ridgewood be afforded the courtesy of getting the straight scoop on what is happening there? I'm confused, Ship was confused, and in all candor, I do not think any of the village council members appear to have a much better idea of what is going on than me. I will return in the next segment of comments from the public with more thoughts. Thank you.
All right. Dylan, next comment.
Jeannie Johnson, please unmute.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Johnson, 325 Maston Place, and I'm here tonight to once again respectfully ask the council to do your job and put the gatehouse property up for an RFP as soon as possible. Many residents have been watching the proceedings surrounding this issue, and I need to tell you, we are unpersuaded by your stall tactics. There's no reason to delay the issue any further. The problems that were found and the audits and inspections of the gatehouse can be rectified in due time. No repairs are glaring enough to warrant holding back the RFP. The current tenant and any prospective tenant, or the village for that matter, needs time to set their business agenda for the coming year. It's a disservice to taxpayers for the council to drag their feet on this issue for one more day. Please do your job. Vote to put the property out for an RFP. Also, I want to applaud your community for coming together to serve our Bergen County neighbors in need. It's our community that's serving our Bergen County neighbors in needs. As a founding member of the Feed the Frontlines initiative, it brings me great pride in witnessing how beautifully our businesses and our volunteers and some representatives from our governing bodies are working together to serve our vulnerable Bergen County neighbors. Every member of our village council should applaud this effort. Ridgewood is in the spotlight. Let's all rise to the occasion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dylan, next.
All right. The next person is David Zakir. David, please unmute.
Hi, David's right, 133 Heights Road here in Ridgewood. I'm just going to mute my TV here, sorry. I just want to speak on behalf of the Health Barn. First of all, I want to say thank you for the proclamation regarding colon cancer. I am a colon cancer survivor, and so I applaud that proclamation. I applaud a lot of what you do. But I do want to just speak quickly. It takes a lot for me to get, I'm a little bit shy, so it takes a lot of me to come out for something like this. But about the Health Barn, I've been watching from the sidelines, and it makes no sense to me. As a local businessman, it makes financial sense for this town. But beyond that, the wonderful things that Stacy has done most recently with the $1 million grant and what she's doing. I've visited the Health Barn. It's a fabulous place. And I just want to strongly suggest and insist that the RFP put out immediately so that she can get on with her life and decide what her next steps are. It would be a shame to lose such a great place like that in this town. So again, I applaud a lot of what you do, but this one makes no sense to me. So I appreciate your consideration, and I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Dylan, who's next?
Next is a caller in, phone number ending in 9557. Please unmute. Hello.
Hi, this is Erin Taddy, 419 Bogart Avenue.
Hello, good evening.
Hi. First of all, I want to begin by calling in and congratulating One Village, One Vote. I actually read the decision by the judge, and I just applaud their hard work by not giving up. And I would implore the council not to spend 10 more cents of your residents' hard-earned money fighting, what is a, it's it's a losing battle. So time to wave the white flag and do the will of the people as you were elected to do. Secondly, I want to call in and really urge, I see that there's been a little bit of discussion about a social media policy. I have been positively overwhelmed by the support I've gotten from the community since I came forward with my story about how I was blatantly cyberbullied and threatened by a sitting member of the planning board in September of 2019, and how as a village council majority, you chose to allow this person to continue to serve despite seeing the response from my attorney where her actions were called criminal, not to mention they were classless. And thirdly, because I've gotten so much positive attention, I'm thrilled to say that I've been contacted by a media outlet, and I'll be looking forward to sharing my story. And I'm really, really hoping that when the Village Council reconvenes on March 24th and you talk about putting something in writing for cyberbullying to be stopped and not tolerated, we can turn this around to a positive story where what happened to me, at the hands and the unfortunate decisions of a currently sitting planning board member won't happen to anybody else, that you'll have come to your senses and made decisions that allowing a person like that to continue to serve the village in any capacity is a really bad idea. I'm really, really hoping that what I went through and the pain and suffering that my family went through was not in vain, and that something good and something positive can come from that. It's unfortunate. It's sad, but I am really hoping that sharing what happened is going to prevent it from happening to anybody else. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Dylan, who's next?
Next is Hans. Hans, please unmute.
Hans-Jürgen Lehmann, 234 Union Street. Good evening. It was with great pleasure that I read the article in today's Record newspaper upholding the lower court's ruling on one village, one vote. As one of the 7,582 voters who approved the referendum, I feel personally vindicated for the choice I made. I wish to extend my personal thanks to the handful of residents who pushed this referendum forward and persisted in bringing it to this successful conclusion. However, as elated as I may be, I am also saddened and angered by the position taken by village officials, both elected and appointed. In the face of the will of the voters of the Ridgewood, you persisted in your fight against the voters who elected you to represent them fairly, not for your own personal agendas. Our village manager, acting in her role as village clerk, takes the brunt in the appellate court's decision, but she is only the face for the council members who fought tooth and nail to hold on to power come what may. I am seriously troubled by the judge's language in that the village clerk acted, I quote, improperly and unlawfully, close quote. That from an appellate court judge calls for removal from her office and her appointment, as well as other serious consequences. This village needs to take legal action post haste. And what about the role played by our village attorney, whose job it is to give sound legal advice to the council and village employees? I hold that his job is to do right by all the residents of Ridgewood, not just a few on the council. I am mostly angered by the legal costs that the village's taxpayers have to bear, not only for the legal fees to one village, one vote, but also attorney and court fees. I shudder to find out what the village attorney billed for this exercise, even more so the private attorney hired by the village to prosecute the village's lawsuit. I demand herewith that we, the residents of Ridgewood, be given a full accounting of this entire matter. At the very best, I am so proud of the council member who advised against pursuing this lawsuit. At the very worst, I am so disappointed at the other members who sat in silence other than to give their consent. Shame on you. Good night.
Okay, thank you. Dylan, who's next?
Next is Siobhan. Please unmute.
Hi, I'm Siobhan Cram-Winograd, 274 Ivy Place. I wanted to talk tonight about two things, both the agenda and the chair and the role of that related to the agenda. Over the past couple months, the public has shown up in large amounts to speak about 3 issues. And there's sort of 3 issues that have been thematic at the council meetings. They're the health barn and the resistance to the RFP, the newly discovered Shedler secret, and the plight of the pickleballers during this terrible pandemic. The first thing I want to speak to is that 2 meetings ago, I politely reminded this council that we were beholden to Green Acres, that we didn't have absolute say. I focused on a fact, which is true. And I really wanted to remind you because the timeline's sensitive to Stacy and her business. I was shocked when public comment was then closed from the dais. A previous employee was thrown under the bus. The merits of my actual comments were unaddressed. And it was unsettling and sad to see the response that didn't really address the issue that we took millions of dollars from Green Acres and they are part of this timeline. The second thing regarding Shedler is that for the past several weeks, Shedler has been somewhat stonewalled and ignored. Emails have gone unanswered. And then last week, in a very exciting glimmer of hope, it appeared on the agenda, only to be removed instance before the meeting started. That's super confusing. It's super confusing because people are watching and they were hopeful after waiting and being polite that there would be some type of response. It went up and it came down. And that's very curious. The third thing relates to the agenda as well, is that over the past couple of months, I've gotten to know and listen to the pickleballers. They're the loveliest group who simply wants to play in our public park. And they too have been watching the agenda. I was surprised this week when the agenda came up to see an ordinance, an additional ordinance, in addition to the one previously passed regarding fees, that apparently is going to restrict their time. Why are you doing that? When you're still in a conversation, when you're still in fact finding, how upsetting to people who are participating with you that we would take a step tonight to move something forward while you don't even have the results of the sound study. I found all of this, the agenda, the removal, the on, the off, truly upsetting. The comments from 2 meetings ago left me very upset because they were untrue and unfair and threw an employee under the bus. That being said, I called other people because clearly other towns must have this problem. And I was reminded of a couple things. We're governed under the Faulkner Act. You guys are a body of 5. No one's more important than the other. It's the power of the 5 of you. And other towns that have this structure do things like rotate the chair. When the chair is rotated, the agenda is at the discretion of the chair and the meetings take on a different flavor. I do think you should consider this option. And just loosely, Michael, you've done such a good job of chairing these past 2 meetings.
Time is up.
It gave me pause.
All right, sorry, your time is up.
Okay, thank you for being polite.
Thank you. Dylan, who's next?
Next is Scarpa. Please unmute.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening.
Good. I've been in Ridgewood for about 33 years, so please bear with me. I've never done this before.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Okay, Linda Scarpa, 569 Northern Parkway, Ridgewood. I don't know what the agenda is. I'm just assuming you could just talk about the issue at hand. Is that correct?
Public comment. It's any comment that you want to make.
Oh, okay. All right. My whole discussion regards the EMT service division in Ridgewood. I would encourage all of you to look at exactly what the EMT people do in Ridgewood. They respond to the needs of the Ridgewood area. The members of the EMT services are dedicated people. They often work under difficult and horrendous conditions and have serviced the community over and over with millions of volunteer areas and work hand in hand with the police and fire department. They have worked tirelessly through the COVID problem that we've had within the village and continue to do so. Many hours are volunteer or paid minimally at part-time positions. The way that it works is that they usually sign up a sheet of the hours that they would work, and a lot of the times they're working again with no pay. As you know, Ridgewood is a community that works together with police and fire hand in hand with EMT. I've seen it myself, where the EMT people have showed up to help people in my church that have fainted, broken bones, et cetera, et cetera. However, I have become aware of a budget proposal, which I have not seen in written form, although I'd like to see it. And this is the way I currently understand this budget is going to try to process this. Going forward, the EMT people are probably or proposed to work per diem every weekend. Per diem, according to a dictionary, means paid by day. However, in this case, per diem will be a stipend paid per call. In other words, they would get zero pay. They'd sign up to be assigned on a weekend with zero pay to hang out at that office on Douglas Place, and would only get paid if there's a call. The Ridgewood Fire Department would absorb all of the EMT duties, as they also become a fireman with EMT responsibilities. So not only would they tend to fires, they'd attend to other EMT calls, which I've been told they've been currently doing. I was also told to absorb the lessened responsibilities of the EMT, that two new firemen would be hired. Now, I took it upon myself to see what a fireman would be paid in Ridgewood, as this is a civil service position with pension and benefits, and it seems that the average starting salary is $49,000. You multiply that times 2, you're at $99,000. Now, that money would be paid to the new people, but that the EMT people would absolutely get nothing. This is obviously a greater expense.
The time is up.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, it's 3 minutes, but there's a second public comment period at the end of the meeting. That's a little bit longer. It's 5 minutes.
Yes, I would like to. How do I go about getting on that?
Same way as this. Just wait till the end of the meeting.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, next person is Diane Sider. Please unmute.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the members of the Village Council and Parks and Rec that attended the long-awaited pickleball.
Excuse me, please state your name and address for the record.
I'm sorry, Diane Sider, 328 Van Emberg Avenue.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank the members of the Village Council and Parks and Rec that attended the long-awaited pickleball sound study and demonstration yesterday. I would like to ask everyone seated tonight to repeat the word pickleball out loud for me. Just say it, pickleball.
Pickleball.
Everybody that I'm looking at is smiling right now and laughing. It genuinely generates a smile and chuckle to oneself. It's a funny word, and fun is what it's supposed to be all about. Tonight, there is an amendment on the agenda to change the ordinance for pickleball and tennis court hours. The pickleball and tennis community were not aware nor given notice that this would be on the agenda. And it was only last week that the pickleball proposal was introduced to the council. The proposal was introduced with several new concessions, adding to the use of the muted balls already in place. Number one, we would no longer sell non-resident badges. That would reduce participation by about 50%. Number two, the use of green zone quiet paddles. Number three, the enforcement of the muted balls and quiet paddles and the current new resident badges would be implemented by a hired town employee, which was very important to the residents of the Glen School neighborhood. And number four, most importantly, the current hours of operation would only change if the professional sound study deemed that the sound resulting from the play of pickleball was detrimental to the surrounding neighbors and not just to the two complainers. It was quite evident to all in attendance yesterday at the sound study that the sound of the pickleball play is not disruptive to the Glen School neighborhood. We ask that you postpone this amendment until the results of the sound study are produced and that we receive the requested Oprah files about the complaining neighbors, which was we were supposed to be receiving them on or about March 12th. We don't feel it is fair or reasonable to make the decision while this is still being sorted out. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dylan?
Next is Sarab. Please unmute.
Good evening. Hello?
He unmuted and muted back.
Again. Saurabh, unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening. This is Saurabh Dhani, 390 Bedford Road in Ridgewood. Thank you for taking my call and thank you for your service. I see that there's a budget item on the agenda tonight, and I was just wondering if during that discussion, if you can clarify one question, that if the tax levy is increased by X% and the total taxable base goes up in second quarter of tax year or first quarter of tax year, then does residents' tax bill get adjusted in the following quarters? So if we are setting up, say, $50 million as total tax levy for the next budget year, and our tax base is going to change because of renovations or apartments coming online, will the distribution among existing taxpayer change in the following quarter? So that's my question, if you can answer that during the budget discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Saurabh. We'll be going into our budget presentation, introduction after manager's report and council reports and the closure of public comments. So probably address it there. All right, Dylan, anyone next?
All right, one more. Two more. Oops. Michelle McGordy, please unmute.
Well, good evening.
Hi, this is Michelle McGordy, 330 Bedford Road. I'm calling with two things. One, just to add my voice to the chorus of Ridgewood residents asking the council to reconsider its position regarding Health Barn. I am a Willard area neighbor, and I'm thrilled to have Health Barn in Hebernickel. I can't imagine a better use for the space. They're undeniably an asset to the community, and if the town has a valid reason for not giving the opportunity to renew the lease, please share it. Given the Green Acres designation and especially the Feed the Frontlines grant, we should be doing everything we can to keep Health Barn not stalling so long that they're forced to find other accommodations. The other issue is quick. I also would just like to resurface an issue that I brought up over the summer, which is the use of the band shell. I understand that the charter generally doesn't allow businesses to use that space, but it seems incredibly unkind that the council was not willing to make an exception for that during COVID. One example of that is the Ridgewood Performing Arts Center. Obviously, they're not allowed to have recitals indoors like they normally do. And they had 15 graduating seniors this year who just wanted to put on their toe shoes and dance their variations for their parents. And the village wouldn't allow them to do that. And I just think that that was really unkind. I'm on several boards myself, and I know that exceptions can be made. And I just would like them to rethink that space, especially while it seems that we're going to need to do things outdoors on a fairly long-term basis. And often in Ridgewood, it seems like athletics are prioritized over the arts. We have that space, and I really would encourage the village to allow people to use it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dylan, one more?
Nope, that was it.
That's it. Okay, I'd like to close public comments and go into the manager's report.
Okay. COVID-19 vaccines. As we know, there are several places that people can get vaccines, such as Newbridge Medical Center, Holy Name Medical Center, Hackensack Meridian Health. The Ridgewood Health Department has been getting vaccines. If you are a Ridgewood resident and fall into the groups now, which are being serviced, which are 65 and older, people who have underlying health conditions, or are smokers, then you can register now. Do not register now if you do not fall into those groups, because you'll have to re-register later once you are within the group. You can do so by emailing covid@ridgewoodnj.net, providing your name, address, phone, date of birth, and the reason you qualify. If you do not have access to technology, you may call to register at 201-670-5500, extension 244. We are not guaranteed vaccines every week. We hope to get it every week. Recently we have, but we don't know for sure, but certainly do register. And when your name comes up on the list, we will call you and let you know when you can come to get a vaccine. The pickleball and tennis courts will open tomorrow, March 11th. Tennis court hours are Sunday to Saturday, 8 a.m. to dark. Pickleball is at the Glen Courts, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Sunday from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. There will be no pickleball play on Monday or Friday, and the pickleball players must have muted balls and green zone paddles. This actually was proposed by the Ridgewood Parks and Recreation Division, and it was after speaking with the residents as well as with the pickleball players themselves. And as was mentioned, it was discussed at the work session last week, and the village council agreed to these days and hours. I just want to give you an update on the food scrap recycling pilot program. There were about 50 chosen to begin the program. Program participants came to the recycling center to pick up their 5-gallon collection buckets. So starting Sunday, this past Sunday, March 7th, participants started collecting their food scraps. And then on Monday, March 15th, they'll start bringing their buckets to the recycling center for weekly emptying. I want to just mention that 1057 Hillcrest Road will be discussed at the March 24th work session. There will be some discussion about repairs that are needed, the top priorities being identified. We will attempt to get estimates for the top priority repairs. However, many times contractors are reluctant to provide estimates unless they know they will be awarded the work, which we can't guarantee at all. And then the village council can further discuss whether or not they wish to go out for an RFP at this time. Some cancellations that have occurred due to COVID-19 are the annual baseball parade and family fun day event, and then also Earth Day, Daffodil Festival, and Dog Parade, which are all held on the same day, have also been canceled. Village Council upcoming meetings are broadcast live on YouTube and also on the village website. March 24th is a work session beginning at 7:30 p.m. April 7th is another Village Council work session at 7:30 p.m. And then April 14th is our Village Council public meeting at 8 o'clock p.m. I just want to remind everyone that this Sunday, March 14th, is daylight saving time, and we all set our clocks ahead 1 hour. In addition, I do want to mention that we are going to be discussing Shedler at the March 24th meeting. That was another question that was raised, and so I just wanted to advise you of that as well. That's all I have.
Thank you, Heather. We'll go to council reports. We'll start with Councilwoman Reynolds.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I had no committee meetings since last week, so I have nothing to report.
It was quick. Councilwoman Walsh.
I don't have anything to report for my committees, but I'm just going to give another plug for the fashion show, asking everybody to bid online at Handbid. And also Parkwood Deli is going to be doing a special, the special dinner as they do. If you mention Project Graduation 21, $5 from each meal will go to the Project Graduation Fund. So we've got lots of wonderful auction items, and Handbid, if you haven't used it, is so easy to use. And the fashion show is next Thursday, and we're really hoping that this is our largest fundraiser for Project Graduations. So we're hoping everybody will participate and support the community. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilwoman Perrin.
Well, I did go today to the clinic for vaccinations, and there were over 100 people from Ridgecrest getting their second shots. And it was such an upbeat event, and they were so thankful. One woman almost had tears in her eyes because she had tried to get shots on her own and she couldn't. And so that the Ridgewood Health Department could work with age-friendly and the administration was just really wonderful. Green Ridgewood met last week, and we are planning a styrofoam collection event at Graydon Pool for Saturday, April 17th, with a rain date of April 24th, 10 to 1 o'clock. The first hour will be for Ridgewood residents only. And this is not for food styrofoam containers. This is just for the big packing kind And also we are planning a virtual Earth Day event with a multimedia presentation celebrating several North Jersey towns' efforts in environmental conservation. We also had a guest named Diane O'Brien from the planning board come speak to us. And she was telling us about the new requirement to have in a master plan a section that addresses climate change and mitigation. And we had several guests actually who were interesting at that meeting. We discussed various grants, the food waste pilot project. Also, the library has a sustainability series, and Green Ridgewood is going to help with one of their presentations on April 21st, which I think is going to be via Zoom. It's called Geothermal Energy Demystified. So we're going to be promoting that and assisting. We also had a discussion about Adopt a Drain. And if anybody's interested, it's really an already created program by the state. And it only takes like 15 minutes a month to clear out your pet drain. And it makes a difference in terms of the climate in that it keeps flooding at bay and also avoids pollution. So that's Green Ridgewood. Chamber of Commerce met this morning, and I asked them how they felt about grab and go, and they all unanimously agreed they would like it to continue another 6 months after May 1st. So Heather, if we could do an application form that we could work with for to get it all together before May 1st. As to the garage, there was a concern about bikers in the garage above the first floor, that there's a possibility they could hit cars. And also, let's see, they spoke about Feed the Front Lines, of course. In the first 2 days, they served over 2,000 meals. And it's really helping the restaurants. For instance, restaurants that rely on catering, and you can imagine there have not been many catered events since COVID, no football dinners, that kind of thing. So this really has helped the restaurants. Let's see, there were 10 new businesses that signed up as members for the Chamber of Commerce, and that's just amazing. But the most amazing thing is that Bagelicious is coming back. After the fire last year, they are reopening in what was the South Broad Street address for Mango Jam. So that's really just a real good news story. And let's see. With regard to parking, we had different thoughts. One person said, how about that train station? Can it be utilized more effectively? Can we get more people parking there and open it up to more people? And can the fourth floor of the garage be used for overnight parking? And somebody else said, maybe we should just wait. Because if we commit ourselves to a certain parking regime or a program, we could get stuck with it. Let's wait a little longer until things warm up and maybe see if people are going to use the garage more. And so that's it for Chamber of Commerce. And I did Green Ridgewood. CBDAC, the Central Business District Advisory Committee, met last week. We had a really interesting speaker from the Community Fund of New Jersey. His name is Jordan Glatt. He's a former mayor of Summit. And it was really interesting how Summit has so many concerns that are just like Ridgewood's. Are you going to have a pedestrian mall? What do you do about parking? And it was really an interesting conversation also because Summit has a business improvement district. So there were lots of questions for him about that. That's all I have for my committees.
All right. Thank you, Councilwoman Perrin. Mayor Knutson, anything?
Sorry. So I have nothing, but Pam had so much, I'm almost embarrassed. But no, I have nothing.
Okay, thank you. Just real briefly, the Green Team met also last week, and everybody's working on getting ready for the June 6th deadline for submission for our application to Sustainable Jersey to hopefully maintain our silver certification. And then last night, the Shade Tree Commission met. I'd just like to report that the tree inventory is working perfectly. It's not one of those reports that are done and, well, we know how many trees we have and it gets put on the shelf and no one ever looks at it again. It's been an incredibly helpful tool in identifying ash trees that we could possibly treat and save to continue to grow and thrive in the village of Ridgewood, even though the emerald ash borer is really ravaging these trees all around. They could use the inventory to know exactly how big they are, exactly where they are, so they don't have to waste time driving around each village street. They could go right to the trees and check them out. And that's only one application. There's so many others. So it's an incredibly valuable tool that our Shade Tree Division is, it seems like they're really using it, and they're finding it incredibly useful. Then on, there will be a tree distribution. About 100 trees will be given out in honor of Arbor Day, although it won't be exactly on Arbor Day. It'll be May 1st from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. in the Graydon Pool parking lot. It will be contactless, so residents wishing to get trees can pull up, open up their trunks or their hatches or whatever they got in the back of their vehicles, and the trees will be placed in, and they can go and plant those hopefully throughout the village and honor Arbor Day. And then finally, some members of the Shade Tree Commission will be going out at a time to be determined to take stock in some of the survival rates of trees planted in the past year. So we'll have a good idea of how these trees are surviving, if they're thriving, and that'll help us in the future during future planting events. So that's all I had. And with that, we could go into the 2021 budget introduction.
Okay, I'd like to just start by saying thank you to Bob Rooney, our CFO, Steve Zanzari, our treasurer, and all of the department directors and supervisors who helped to get us to this budget this evening to introduce. We are introducing within the statutory timeline, which is wonderful. I'll start with some 2020 accomplishments and highlights. We navigated through a pandemic. Oh, I'm sorry. Bob Rooney's going to, I think, try to share his screen here like we would normally have it on the screens here in Village Hall.
Can you see it?
No.
Oh, no, sorry, hold on. Hold on. I know what I gotta do. One second.
We're waiting.
I know. Can you see it now?
Not yet.
No?
No.
Okay.
I know you had it before the meeting started. I saw it clicked onto the screen briefly. I guess maybe you were going through a test run. So whatever you did then, you can do that now.
That's easier for you to say, Michael.
It's very easy for me to say.
Let's try this again. Share.
There you go.
There.
Right.
Okay.
We're getting there.
We see it.
So if we could just get to the 2020 accomplishments and highlights.
Yeah.
Does it put in a presentation mode? Hold on.
Okay, sorry.
We good?
No, you shared the wrong screen. The other one.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, and then just
I apologize for this.
That's okay. There we go.
All right, you see that, but you don't see the presentation, right?
No,
All right.
you had it before.
I know I had it before. No?
No, we're just seeing just the presentation in the program itself, not the presentation, not the full-size version. You have to click on the podium. There you go. You got it.
All right, Heather.
Okay, so I just need you to get to the one that says 2020 accomplishments and highlights.
How's that?
Perfect. So we navigated through a pandemic with new protocols in place requiring the purchase of personal protective equipment for all employees. We placed barriers in Village Hall between the staff and public. We changed in the bathroom toilet sinks and paper towel fixtures to be touchless, also in the kitchen areas. We continued to pick up garbage during the pandemic as well as recycling, with dramatically increased volumes due to people being at home. The staff of the water department and water pollution control facility who work around the clock 24 hours a day, they did so as they did pre-pandemic. The village fire department, police department, and EMS continued to serve the village on split shifts so as to lessen the threat of transmission of the COVID-19 virus. Those who were on the split shifts were able to be recalled during their time frame that they were to be working. But this way we lessen the likelihood of the transmission of the virus. We brought staff back to work in village offices in a thoughtfully, carefully planned manner in mid-April with a hybrid of work from home and working in offices while remaining close to the public. This allowed there to be a limited risk of transmission, again, of COVID-19 virus in the village departments. We opened village offices to the public at the beginning of July through the end of November. Village offices have been closed to the public since that time. However, staff has been working in the offices 5 days per week, full-time, during that entire time. All members of the public have continued to be served in an efficient and timely manner, and we have created a new customer service window outside of the garden room, which is located next to the lobby doors of Village Hall. The health officer, health department, and public health nurses have worked tirelessly during the pandemic, conducting contact tracing, and most recently, conducting COVID-19 vaccination clinics for Ridgewood residents in Village Hall. The health officer has spent countless hours advising village employees, the Board of Education Administration as to COVID-19 regulations, requirements, and protocols. We established the use of Zoom for meetings of the Village Council, Planning Board, Zoning Board of Adjustment, and several boards and committees, which has increased public participation. We finished the construction of the Hudson Street Garage and opened it for public use. We established security measures at the Hudson Street Garage for public safety. We've installed multi-space kiosks throughout the Central Business District. We, during several weeks between, I think it was May Through November, we shut down East Ridgewood Avenue from Walnut Street to Broad Street on Saturdays and Sundays for the Welcome Back to Ridgewood, New Jersey event. Again, it created the pedestrian mall. This was a joint venture between the village, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Ridgewood Guild. This included staff time to put up and take down barriers, police officers assigned to the event, health inspectors and code enforcement officers working with the restaurants and businesses with the pedestrian mall to be sure that they were within the guidelines established. We held musical performances were held throughout the pedestrian mall area during the weekends, and there was an Oktoberfest event on the west side of the Central Business District during this time frame. These events were successful and benefited many restaurants and businesses in the village. We established grab-and-go parking spaces and 15-minute complimentary parking spaces for those wishing to pick up items from a local business. We designed and executed with the Chamber of Commerce a revised version of downtown for the holidays with COVID-19 protocols in place to welcome in the holiday season. We opened Graydon Pool for the summer season to bring some normalcy to the lives of village residents, and we updated the Graydon Pool bathrooms. We completed the street tree inventory for village streets, which is a valuable tool for future planning for tree planting and removal. As Deputy Mayor Seaton pointed out, also identifying certain trees to see if they are perhaps infested with various kinds of insects. We planted $110,000 worth of new trees throughout the village. We conducted 3 mail-in ballot elections, the combination Board of Education and municipal election, the primary election, and general election, which was the first time this format was used. We reviewed 2 initiative petitions for an initiative question to be placed on the general election ballot regarding consolidating elections to November. The village was fortunate enough, due to our strict protocols in our financial area, to maintain our AAA rating. We continued work on the Zabriskie Shedler House. The ADA ramp to the house was constructed, and the berm on the Shedler property was continued to be worked on. We obtained recertification of the village's community rating service, which allows property owners needing to purchase flood insurance to receive a 20% discount on their insurance premiums. We obtained NJDOT paving grants in the amount of $385,000, thereby reducing the amount of village funds needed. We awarded over $2 million in a contract for paving projects on village roads. We worked on and completed the dredging of the pond at Kings Pond Park. We closed on the purchase of the Ridgewood Elks Club property, which will become the new headquarters for Ridgewood Water. We resurfaced the Ridgewood High School and Somerville tennis courts. We settled the fire department union and supervisors union contracts. We established fees for use of the village's parks by both commercial and nonprofit groups. We installed acoustical panels at the Glen School pickleball courts and required muted balls at the pickleball courts in order to reduce the noise for the surrounding neighbors. Ridgewood Water replaced 3 water main replacements in-house instead of bidding this work out, and awarded contracts to outside vendors for 3 replacement wells. Ridgewood Water awarded a 20-year lease to a new wireless customer on the Glen Avenue tank, which will net an additional $297,270 per year in fixed revenue for Ridgewood Water. The Ridgewood Police Department was reaccredited through CALIA, which is a national accreditation agency which holds the Ridgewood Police Department to standards of excellence. We completed the Emergency Operations Center renovations. This Operations Center is used during times of major storms, hurricanes, or other types of emergencies. We sold many of our old vehicles and equipment, which were no longer needed for public use and had been declared surplus, and that brought in additional revenues. Our goals for 2021, we continue to navigate through the COVID-19 pandemic in the best way possible while keeping both village staff and village residents safe. We continue to hold COVID-19 vaccine clinics locally for Ridgewood residents. We are determining the best way to reallocate parking spaces throughout the Central Business District, given less people commuting to New York City and less people venturing out into the world. We are trying to determine a way to continue event in the central business district on weekends to assist restaurants and businesses. We're hopeful to increase the Wi-Fi coverage in the central business district. We have already awarded the contract for $2 million in paving projects for village streets, maintaining our infrastructure. We are going to plant again $110,000 worth of new trees throughout the village. We will continue the work on the interior of the Zabriskie Shedler house. We will continue the work on the Shedler field once SHPO has approved the plan. We are going to open Graydon Pool and also determine a way to hold a modified summer day camp. And we will continue the work at Kings Pond Park. We are going to launch the Water Smart portal for customers of Ridgewood Water. They will have access to many aspects of their account, including water usage, payment of bills, and other important information about Ridgewood Water. Ridgewood Water will continue to pursue PFAS treatment facilities in various locations throughout the utility. Ridgewood Water will encourage other public water utilities to join with Ridgewood Water in coordinating efforts for recovery of PFAS expenses. We'll begin construction of the new Ridgewood Water headquarters, which is the former Elks Club property, with an anticipated opening in the first quarter of 2022. We'll establish rules and regulations for the Glen Pickleball courts, which will allow the pickleball players to play and the surrounding neighbors to have some days and times when no pickleball play is allowed. We'll be replacing the aging underground storage tanks for the gasoline pumps at the village's central garage to prevent a gasoline leak in the future. We need to negotiate the blue and white collar union contracts. We are replacing public safety vehicles and equipment, as well as vehicles and equipment for other departments. We have hired and trained, we're going to train a vulnerable population outreach coordinator with a grant received to identify village residents who are in need of assistance. The 2021 budget process actually begins in July when the department directors receive their budget forms, and they are required to be sent to finance by early September. In October, several rounds of internal reviews were held with department directors, and the objective was to provide the best possible numbers and alternatives to the village council. The emphasis was on operating efficiencies, as well as customer service improvements and investment in people, process, and technology. Budget reviews with the village council were designed to elevate the dialogue to include strategic planning as well as daily operations. Operating expenses as well as capital budgets were discussed for the village, Ridgewood Water Utility, Parking Utility, and the library. Various budget meetings were held with the village council during the month of February, where department directors made presentations on their 2021 budget requests. Our final session, which was actually this past Monday, proposed the water, parking, and capital budgets in addition to general water and parking operating budgets, and the tax rate was also set. At this point, I'll turn it over to Mr. Rooney.
So the budget that's being presented to council this evening has approximately $33 million of contractual obligations. 22.6 million represent salaries and wages, and 10.8 million represent pension, health insurance, and terminal leave. The total obligations now constitute approximately 63% of the budget presented. As of the end of the year, we have $7.4 million of unfunded liabilities. We had retirements amounting to 564,000 in 2020. We estimate retirements of 325,000 in 21. Total payments this year, approximately $890,000, of which 844,000 is maintained in a trust fund. The operating budget consists of approximately $52.9 million. We are proposing an $8 million net capital budget. The appropriation will result in a 4.7 municipal tax increase, which results in a $204 annual increase on an average assessed home valued at $701,664. Estimated outstanding bonds and notes at the end of 20 is 46.9 million. at the end of 19 was 38.2 million. And the proposed budget for revenues and expenses is up approximately $3.8 million from the prior year. The budget being introduced shows appropriations of $52.9 million. That is being funded by $4 million of surplus, miscellaneous revenues of $10.3 million, receipts from delinquent taxes of $786,000, resulting in the amount to be raised of $37.8 million. The result would be the tax on an average assessed value home of approximately $702,000 to be $4,562. The municipal portion would be $61.15. The library portion, $3.87. Revenues for 2020 came up short of anticipation of approximately $1.6 million. Local government is allowing us to maximize our anticipated revenues for 2021 by utilizing a 3-year average to keep the revenues in line with 2020. We're optimizing the use of reserves and surpluses, but we want to run risks associated with hitting our revenue targets, recovering from the COVID impact, especially as it relates to municipal court fines and costs and fees for building permits. Our police side jobs are always at risk from the standpoint of weather-related for outside construction. COVID obviously had a slight impact on it this year. Our revenues from grading, of course, are weather dependent. Our recycling has changed directions. We used to benefit from having recycling and the revenue derived from it. We are now paying out for our recycling. So that has been an impact on this year's budget. And we are using capital fund surplus to help balance our 2001 revenues. The opportunities we have are new ratables from developments, which will impact the 2022 property values, and therefore there should be relief coming next year. Unfortunately, we get no benefit until developments are occupied. We try to assess on a partial occupancy, and I do believe we've had one development that we've partially assessed, but the remainder will not take effect until October of this year. Revenue changes from 21 to 20. You can see on the right-hand side, local revenues were a shortfall of approximately $1.6 million. Receipts from delinquent taxes slightly higher. Our amount to be raised by taxation, which essentially is our tax collections, surprisingly is $800,000 over last year. We did have concerns when COVID hit that we might have a significant decrease in our tax revenues, our tax collections. But fortunately, that is not true, and we were able to maintain consistency with the prior year. As I said, the state is allowing us to use a 3-year average in our anticipated revenues for 2021. The impact of that is shown on this chart in the right-hand side. By using the 3-year averages, I'm allowed to increase my anticipated revenue by approximately $1.4 million. If this was not allowed, we would have a shortfall of approximately $1.4 million that would substantially increase the tax rate. I'm also allowed to use parking, 3-year average. I'll get to parking in a couple of minutes, but the benefit I received this year is approximately $440,000 over what I would have been limited to in the prior year. Key revenue fluctuations. We had a decrease in 21 of special franchise taxes, $270,000. That we will never see again because of a tax audit on the public service. Our interest on investments dropped $342,000 as a result of COVID. Parking surplus, I do not have the revenues available in the parking to bring anything over to the current fund. My police administrative charges were down about $97,000 over last year. I do have the capability of using capital fund balance in 21 of $400,000. I have debt service that has accumulated over the last couple of years that I can bring over to revenues. Village property, I have reserves of $110,000 that can be utilized. Cell tower rents have increased by agreements, $40,000. I have some recycling reserve that I've accumulated again. What's left in it over the last couple of years of $40,000. And our fire safety inspections have improved in the amount of $25,000 over the prior year. This chart shows the balance of surpluses that have been available over the years. This year, I'm projecting a $5.1 million surplus, which is slightly up over last year. I know that sounds unusual for a challenged year that we've had, but as I said, the tax collections have helped substantially. We've also had significant amounts of money we received in revenue unanticipated, so that contributes to balancing the surplus to an acceptable level. Our appropriations for 21 are approximately 41 million inside the cap, 3.2 million outside the cap, capital improvement fund of 475,000, debt service 6.5 million, deferred charges are flat, and our reserve fund collected taxes are flat. The comparison I've made here does not include the amount of money that we were allowed to appropriate last year for COVID expenses, which was an ordinance that council passed back in December. This chart reflects the increases and decreases that are shown between the years. As you can see, salaries and wages are up approximately 2.5%. That's the result of contractual agreements and overtime, projected overtime. Other expenses we have whittled down to less than what they were last year by almost 2%. Our deferred charges and statutory expenditure benefits are almost 9%. They're contractual. There's no flexibility on those. Other operations are flat compared to 2020. Capital improvements and emergency appropriations are up approximately 10%, and that is the requirement to fund down payments on the capital ordinances that we appropriate, and debt service is up approximately $1 million, which is over 20% of what we had in the last year. Next year, the debt service levels out because we have some maturities that will be completely paid off. And the reserve fund collected taxes, fortunately, has stayed the same as last year. Our gross debt and general capital for 2020, a total bonds and notes of $56.9 million, authorized on issue $12.3 million for a total of $59 million. We project with the ordinances that we have on the table for tonight and any funding sources short-term funding sources we may need during the year to be approximately $62 million at the end of 21. Our general capital program, which $2.5 million has been introduced already by council. The remainder is on the agenda for tonight, and approximately $6.5 million. And that is the purchase of vehicles, IT, public safety, engineering, infrastructure, and the library. Our water utility budget is basically flat to last year. Salaries and wages are slightly up, other expenses slightly up, debt service is down. I've reflected that here. It's about $284,000 increase. And there's the components of the operating capital improvement, decline in debt service, and statutory and other expenses. Our water capital is approximately $8.9 million for this year. Council has already introduced, I believe, an ordinance for $600,000. The balance is on for tonight's introduction. Our gross debt for the water capital fund at the end of 20 was approximately $4.1 million. It's anticipated that it'll be at $48 million at the end of 21 as a result of the ordinances on the table for consideration by council. Parking utility. My revenues for 21 were substantially less than they were in the prior year as a result of COVID. So to balance the budget, I've used additional surplus. I've had the opportunity to use the 3-year average for parking meters. My interest on investments were down substantially, again, as a result of COVID and the decline in interest rates. And I've have parking capital surplus available of approximately $400,000 to balance the operating budget. Budget, again, is slightly down from last year. That's the result of not having $300,000 available to pay over to the general budget. offset by the increase in debt service. In addition, this year, we pick up a full year of garage maintenance costs. This is money that our architects prepared an annual budget for us to put aside for both the reserve and for ongoing maintenance of the garage. So this 21 budget will feel the full year impact of that appropriation. Proposed capital for this year is a Kubota mini street sweeper for $103,000. Our current equipment is too large to get into the parking garage on the second and third floors. So this will afford us the opportunity to use it here as well as in the central business district. Our gross debt from parking capital at the end of 20 was $14.8 million. There'll be a slight decrease this year as a result of payment of debt. So it'll be approximately 14.7 or just a little bit under 14.7. Overall, the risk that the village faces in this proposed budget, we have negotiations for blue and white collar union contracts. We have defensive tax appeals, which it is never a guarantee as to how this is going to work. We've had some last year. We were very fortunate not to have any large ones. We did have one that we had one settlement on, but in talking to the tax assessor, we just don't know what that impact would be. We're recovering from COVID revenues, the impact that it's had on revenues. If you remember when this process started back last March, the indication was that COVID would not impact our appropriations. COVID would impact our revenues, and it certainly has. Trying to sustain what we're budgeting this year is going to be a challenge. Police overtime is variable depending on the situation. We did incur some during the summer this year, but for the most part, we've been stable and we hope to maintain that. We also have infrastructure that we have to maintain. During the course of the years, we had some years going back 6-7 years ago that we didn't invest much in our capital, and we're now feeling the impact on some of those items in the infrastructure. And we also have the use of one-time revenues, the reserves and other surpluses that were available to balance the budget may not always be there for us. Weather conditions are always a consideration that we have to face. We had a very good year last year. We have the infrastructure that we have to deal with as far as maintaining the water flow. And in addition to that, we also have the PFAS issue that is going to start to impact the capital as we move forward. And I know Rich Calby made that presentation when he did his budget. So it's something that we will have to keep an eye on. And lastly, it's the COVID impact on our parking revenues as to trying to get that back to a level that we can essentially fund the operations of the parking utility. Any questions? Now I just have to figure out how to get out of this.
Okay, questions or comments? Anyone?
Oh, I'll start my comments. So unfortunately, when we had our budget meeting, at least on the screen, we didn't see any village guests watching our budget meeting. So we had a robust discussion, which I would encourage everybody to go back and listen to, because there were a lot of comments by all of the council with our concerns and our questions about the budget. So if everybody can do that in the next couple of days, they can see our full comments when we were talking about the budget. But so for myself, the comments that I made were that I'm really concerned that we're anticipating things that are probably not going to happen, such as our parking utility budget. And we did get some numbers today. I didn't really get a chance to look into them, but I don't personally anticipate that we're going to be able to get those monies back in 2021. And I think that we have to really take a hard look at where else in our budget we can make accommodations because we have that debt. We talked about maybe not hiring the individuals that were going to be new hires, because it's a lot easier to not hire somebody than to furlough people. I just think that the 4.7% is, we don't even know what the Board of Ed's budget's going to be. We don't know what the county's budget's going to be. So while we're only responsible for our piece of it, we have to be mindful of these other taxes that are going to be hitting our residents. I know that we also talked about possibly maybe amending the way that we do things in the village in terms of maybe staggering our recycle pickups to try to save some money that way. I mean, we've talked about it for years, but we've never had a chance to really put it into effect to save monies. So I think that there's a bigger conversation, and as I mentioned, I'm not comfortable with a 4.7% increase. So those are my comments.
Okay, anyone else?
So I just want to comment that I did find out today that the Board of Ed increase is going to be 1.99%. So I was thrilled to hear that. So
Yeah.
they're staying under the 2%. So that just, that's great. So that 67% of the budget will be within the cap. So that's really, I've said everything the other day at the other meeting. I don't think I have really anything else to add.
Okay.
So I'll just throw in my 2 cents. So I went back to better understand what a 2% increase would look like on the average home, and that would be $84. So the difference to the $204 increase from the $84 is $120. It's $30 a quarter. And I think that what we're looking at here is services, because that's what we provide. We provide public safety, we pave roads, we deliver services to our community. And I think that our past council since 2014 for Councilman, the Deputy Mayor Seaton and myself in 2016, we were so really coming in at such a responsible numbers, 1.3%, 1.2%, 1.7%. But I think that this is a year where COVID has had such a significant impact. But when you break it down into that quarterly and you look at the real numbers, I think that people really do want the services. And I don't think that it's prudent to, we might bite our nose to spite our face if you start looking at maybe not doing hires. I believe we were discussing maybe there's a police officer. We know that if we don't hire a police officer for July Academy, that police officer is not going to be ready to be on the road for another 2 years. So we lose a whole bunch of time with that, and that could ultimately result in more overtime. So we don't want to put ourselves in a different situation or predicament where we can't get out of. I think that when you break it down into those kind of numbers, the 2%, it would be $84 on the average home. At 4.7%, it's $204. That's $120 delta. That's what it comes down to. And I do believe that we have an obligation to continue to deliver services and provide services to our residents. It's what we do.
Okay. I'd like to comment. It's been a difficult year, and we were talking about potentially not hiring some of the hires we planned, but because other than police and fire, they've been pushed off till November, really wouldn't significantly impact this budget this year, or really bring it down much more than the increase that's already being proposed. I do agree that we should have conversations on services. And again, if we're going to change the way we deliver services or cut certain services, again, I mean, it takes time for planning for these things. So, but by the time we were ready to implement them, they probably wouldn't be ready till closer to the end of this year. And again, in this particular budget, you wouldn't really get to see any benefit. Of course, next year you would get to see the benefit, which is why throughout the course of this year, we should have these conversations. And also there'll be ample opportunity for the public to comment and to chime in and discuss and let us know whether, whether or not they would want to see certain services go or be scaled back. Again, this is something that we're going to have to take a good hard look at this year, knowing that potentially next year parking revenues may again take another hit because they might not come back fully this year. And there may be, even though seems to be getting a little better with vaccines and COVID, it looks like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's still going to be residual impacts for this budget that may even carry into next year. So again, these are all conversations that we need to have to prepare for next year's budget. That I think the only real way to significantly impact this year's budget, the 4.7% increase, would be to do some kind of layoffs, and that would really only have the immediate effect of lowering that. But I believe the number was somewhere around $720,000 to get the budget down by 2%. So that could potentially be significant layoffs, which again would impact services and possibly create overtime where overtime doesn't currently exist. So there'd be knock-on effects to that too. It's a tough year for everybody, and like I said, we're kind of in this situation, but we got to really kind of put our nose to the grindstone and get cracking on next year's budget soon. Again, because some of these decisions that we're going to have to make regarding services is going to take discussion, it's going to take planning, it's going to take implementation. So these are definitely discussions that we're going to have, and hopefully we'll get a lot of response from the public. But that's really my comments. Councilwoman Perrin, do you have anything?
No, I don't think I do.
Okay.
Michael?
Oh, yes.
Two things. First of all, I just want to remind everyone that I don't feel the village should be the balancing effect for increases that may come through the county and the school. The county does their budget processes the same way we do. So if they're recommending a 2% increase or a 3% increase, residents have the opportunity to participate just like they do in the village. They'll have a hearing on the budget. They can go and voice their opinions, and then their commissioners will then make a decision as to whether to address it or to pass the budget the way it is. Same way it is in the village. As Councilwoman Seaton said, we do have services that we have to maintain. We have already, to get to the 4.7, brought this down to slightly 2% less than what we were doing last year in other expenses. We have contractual commitments that we have with our unions that we can't get around. So to Michael's point, we would have to have layoffs, but you're not going to see the impact. You're not going to see that big impact, because by the time it happens, because you're civil service, by the time that happens, it's going to be mid-year or later before you're going to reap the benefit of any of those layoffs. And then there will be other repercussions as far as the balancing of overtime to maintain the essential services that you're going to have to put forward. So just a reminder, I don't think the village should be the balancing act for the other two components of your tax levy. The second point is Mr. Donnie asked a question, I believe, about the tax billing. Your first half of the year is an estimate based upon the prior year tax rate. Your second half of the year is the true up. So once you determine your rate for the current year, you will adjust it in the second half. You will not receive any benefit from any additional assessments until after October. So any assessments that go on board that are assessed in October for any of the new developments will become retroactive to January, but they will not be impacted until 2022. So just a little clarification as to the process of that. So I'm done.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, so with that, I move the first reading of ordinance 3850.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes,
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
so ordered. Will the clerk please read ordinance 3850 by title?
Calendar year 2021 ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank, NJSA 48:4-45.14.
I move that ordinance 3850 be adopted on first reading and that April 14th, 2021 be fixed as the date for the hearing thereon.
I second the motion.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes,
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
The following resolutions, number 21-42 through 21-45, are to be adopted by a consent agenda with one vote by the village council. They will be read by title only. Approve temporary water utility capital budget. Approve temporary general capital budget. Approve temporary parking utility capital budget. Authorize 3-year revenue average for 2021 budget. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Seaton,
yes,
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
The following resolution, number 21-46, will be considered separately and read in full. Municipal budget notice of the Village of Ridgewood, County of Bergen for calendar year 2021. Be it resolved that the following statements or revenues and appropriations shall constitute the municipal budget for the year 2021. And be it further resolved that said budget be published in the Ridgewood News in the issue of March 26, 2021, with a public hearing to be held on April 14th, 2021. And be it finally resolved that the Village Council of the Village of Ridgewood does hereby approve the following as the budget for the year 2021. General appropriations for appropriations within caps, $41,474,178. Appropriations excluded from caps, $10,252,240. Reserve for uncollected taxes, $1,230,000. Total general appropriations, $52,956,418. Less anticipated revenues other than current property tax, $15,073,989. The difference amounts to be raised by taxes for supported budget is $37,882,429. Notice is hereby, public notice, Village of Ridgewood. Notice is hereby given that the budget and tax resolution was approved by the Village Council of the Village of Ridgewood, County of Bergen on March 10th, 2021. A hearing on the budget and tax resolution will be held at Ridgewood Village Hall, 131 North Maple Avenue, Ridgewood, New Jersey, at a regular public meeting to be held via Zoom webinar, April 14th, 2021 at 8 p.m. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, it will be conducted through Zoom. Those who wish to speak during the public hearing to place objections to the said budget and tax resolution for the year 2021 may call into the following phone number, 646-558-8656, and enter the webinar ID 827-1086-3509, or written comments may be submitted to Donna Jackson, Deputy Village Clerk, at djackson@ridgewoodnj.net by email or written letter. Name and address must be provided and received by 4 p.m. on the day before the remote meeting. All written comments must adhere to the time limits already set by ordinance. During the week prior to and up to and including the date of such meetings, copies of said budget will be made available by the village clerk's office in said Village Hall, 131 North Maple Avenue, Ridgewood, New Jersey, to the members of the general public who shall request the same. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
yes,
Walsh,
I'm going to vote yes to move it to the budget presentation, but I'm still in disagreement and want to have public input. But yes.
and Newton.
We always should have public input and we look forward to that. So yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we'll move into Ridgewood Water
Well,
Ordinance.
I just wanted to clarify one thing. How quickly can we put the budget up on the website so that people can be digesting it and trying to understand it?
I need at least till Monday.
Mm.
And it's not because of getting on the websites, because I have the state form that we post on the website that has to be completed now that we have it introduced.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to Ridgewood Water Ordinances introductions. I move the first reading of Ordinance 3851.
Second.
Karen,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
Ordered. Will the clerk please read Ordinance 3851 by title?
Bond ordinance providing for various water utility improvements in and by the village of Ridgewood in the county of Bergen, New Jersey, appropriating $8,253,292 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $8,253,292 bonds or notes of the village to finance the costs thereof.
I move that ordinance 3851 be adopted on first reading and that April 14th, 2021 be fixed as the date for the hearing thereon.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Seaton. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Okay, Walsh
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
All right. I move the first reading of Ordinance 3852.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
Ordered. Will the clerk please read Ordinance 3852 by title?
An ordinance to amend Chapter 145 of the Code of the Village of Ridgewood fees at Section 145-6, enumeration of fees relating to code chapters.
I move that ordinance 3852 be adopted on first reading and that April 14th, 2021 be fixed as the date for the hearing thereon.
I second the motion.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
There are no ordinances for public hearing for Ridgewood Water. Resolutions for Ridgewood Water. The following resolutions, number 21-47 through 21-51, will be adopted by a consent agenda with one vote by the Village Council. They will be read by title only. Award sole source contract, corrosion inhibitor. Title 59 approval, Ridgewood Water Station improvements to East Side and Farview pumping stations. Award contract, Ridgewood Water Station improvements to East Side and Farview pumping stations. Title 59 approval, various site improvements, water storage and pumping facilities. Award contract, various site improvements, water storage and pumping facilities. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
All right, let's move to ordinance introductions. I move the first reading of Ordinance 3853.
Second.
Perrin,
Is this where I'm supposed to say what I think? I was originally in favor of this. However, yesterday there was the demonstration of all the players at the pickleball courts, and I was struck by how minimal the sound was just a few feet away from the courts. And I do think both sides need to compromise. And I think that limiting the badge issue to just residents is a big step towards abating the noise or the sound. And so is the diminution of hours. But I think that cutting play altogether on 2 days a week is rather drastic. I'd like to see how the initial measures go first. And for that reason, I'm going to vote no.
okay. Reynolds,
Yes.
Seaton,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
So ordered. Will the clerk please read ordinance 3853 by title?
An ordinance to amend Chapter 212, Parks and Recreation Areas of the Code of the Village of Ridgewood at Article 7, Rules and Regulations, Section 212-27, Tennis Courts.
I move that ordinance 3853 be adopted on first reading and that March 24th, 2021 be fixed as the date for the hearing thereon.
Second.
Perrin,
No, for the reasons I stated before.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Yes. And Newton.
Yes.
I move the first reading of ordinance 3854.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
So ordered. Will the clerk please read ordinance 3854 by title?
A bond ordinance providing for various capital improvements in and by the Village of Ridgewood in the County of Bergen, New Jersey, appropriating $6,430,325 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $6,108,808 bonds or notes of the village to finance part of the cost thereof.
I move that ordinance 3854 be adopted on first reading and that April 14th, 2021 be fixed as the date for the hearing thereon.
I second the motion.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
All right. I move the first reading of ordinance 3855.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
Ordered. Will the clerk please read ordinance 3855 by title?
A bond ordinance providing for the acquisition of a mini Kubota sweeper for the parking utility in and by the Village of Ridgewood in the County of Bergen, New Jersey, appropriating $103,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $97,850 bonds or notes of the village to finance part of the cost thereof.
I move that ordinance 3855 be adopted on first reading and that April 14th, 2021 be fixed as the date for the hearing thereon.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
I move the first reading of ordinance 3856.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
So ordered. Will the clerk please read ordinance 3856 by title?
An ordinance to amend Chapter 265 of the Code of the Village of Ridgewood, Vehicles and Traffic, at Section 265-54, Schedule 3, one-way streets.
I move that ordinance 3856 be adopted on first reading and that April 14th, 2021 be fixed as the date for the hearing thereon.
Second.
Perrin,
I have to vote yes because I don't believe we have a good alternative.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
I move the first reading of ordinance 3857.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
So ordered. Will the clerk please read ordinance 3857 by title?
An ordinance to amend Chapter 258 of the Code of the Village of Ridgewood, towing, at Section 258-3, definitions, and at Section 258-5, application, and at Section 258-7, removal and storage of vehicles, fees.
I move that ordinance 3857 be adopted on first reading and that April 14th, 2021 be fixed as the date for the hearing thereon.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
I move the first reading of ordinance 3858.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
So ordered. Will the clerk please read ordinance 3858 by title?
An ordinance to amend Chapter 145 of the Code of the Village of Ridgewood fees at Section 145-6, enumeration of fees relating to code chapters.
I move that ordinance 3858 be adopted on first reading and that April 14th, 2021 be fixed as the date for the hearing thereon.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Sorry, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ordinance 3859.
You said that you moved the first reading?
Yeah, I'm the
Okay.
first reading of ordinance 3859.
Thank you. A bond ordinance of the Village of Ridgewood in the County of Bergen, New Jersey. Oh, I'm sorry, second. We need a second. I'm sorry.
I said second.
Okay, and Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
Order. Will the clerk please read ordinance 3859 by title?
A bond ordinance of the Village of Ridgewood in the County of Bergen, New Jersey, providing for the cancellation of $725,000 of a funded debt authorization not needed for its original purpose, and to transfer such amount to the capital surplus fund balance.
I move that ordinance 3859 be adopted on first reading and that April 14th, 2021 be fixed as the date for the hearing thereon.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to move into our public hearings next. I move the clerk read ordinance 3845 by title on the second reading and that the public hearing thereon be open.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
Will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 3845?
An ordinance to amend Chapter 258 of the Code of the Village of Ridgewood towing at Section 258-3 definitions and at Section 258-5 application and at Section 258-7 removal and storage of vehicles fees.
Is the public hearing open?
Oh, my
Now, you have to say,
The village police department received additional information regarding towing, and the revised towing ordinance was introduced this evening as ordinance 3857. The amendments were substantive, so ordinance 3845 will be defeated this evening. The public hearing on ordinance 3845 was advertised for this evening, so anyone wishing to make comments on this ordinance may do so at this time. The public hearing is now open.
do we have any?
Anyone?
No, none.
I move the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton. I didn't hear you, I'm sorry. Newton,
Yes.
thank you.
I move that ordinance 3845 be defeated.
Second.
Okay, yes vote is to defeat. Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
I move the clerk read ordinance 3846 by title on the second reading and that the public hearing thereon be open.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
Will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 3846?
An ordinance to amend Chapter 145 of the Code of the Village of Ridgewood fees at Section 145-6, enumeration of fees relating to code chapters.
The village police department received additional information regarding towing fees, and the revised towing fees ordinance was introduced this evening as ordinance 3858. The amendments were substantive, so ordinance 3846 will be defeated this evening. Public hearing on ordinance 3846 was advertised for this evening, so anyone wishing to make comments on this ordinance may do so at this time. The public hearing is now open.
Any comments?
I am showing none.
I move the public hearing be closed.
Second.
I move that ordinance
Wait, I have to do a roll call.
Sorry.
Perrin? Yes? I'm sorry.
I didn't hear my name. Perrin. I mean, yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
I move that ordinance 3846 be defeated.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
I move the clerk read ordinance 3847 by title on the second reading and that public hearing thereon be open.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
Will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 3847?
An ordinance to amend Chapter 249 of the Code of the Village of Ridgewood, Streets and Sidewalks at Article 3, Section 249-60, permit not required of village.
The public hearing is now open. Anyone?
I am showing none.
I move the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
I move that ordinance 3847 be adopted on second reading and final publication as required by law.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
I move the clerk read ordinance 3848 by title on the second reading and that the public hearing thereon be open.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
Will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 3848?
An ordinance to amend Chapter 55 of the Code of the Village of Ridgewood entitled Open Space, Recreation, Farmland, and Historic Preservation Committee.
The public hearing is now open. Anyone?
I am showing none.
I move the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
I move that ordinance 3848 be adopted on second reading and final publication as required by law.
I second the motion.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
I move the clerk read ordinance 3849 by title on second reading and that the public hearing thereon be open.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
Will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 3849?
An ordinance to amend Chapter 145 of the Code of the Village of Ridgewood fees at Section 145-6, enumeration of fees relating to code chapters.
The public hearing is now open. Anyone?
I am showing none.
I move the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
I move that ordinance 3849 be adopted on second reading and final publication as required by law.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh. I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Yes.
Walsh. Okay, and Newton.
Yes.
I move the clerk read ordinance 3834 by title on the fourth reading and that the public hearing thereon be continued.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
Will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 3834?
An ordinance of the Village of Ridgewood authorizing the execution of a financial agreement with Ridgewood Senior Citizen Housing Corp., Inc. and Ridgecrest Urban Renewal LLP, granting a tax exemption for Ridgecrest Senior Citizen Housing.
The public hearing on ordinance 3834 was continued from the January and February public meetings so that additional information could be provided to the village council. This information has not yet been received, so the public hearing on ordinance 3834 will be continued again. The public hearing on ordinance 3834 is now continued.
Anyone?
I am showing none.
Okay. I move the public hearing on ordinance 3834 be continued to April 14th, 2021.
I second the motion.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton.
Yes.
The following resolutions, number 21-52 through 21-69, are to be adopted by a consent agenda with one vote by the village council. They will be read by title only. Award partial contract award to sole source supplier, upgrade of SCADA system at water pollution control facility. Award contract, animal control and waterfowl management. Title 59 approval, 2021 recreational program instruction. Award contracts, 2021 recreational program instruction. Title 59 approval, coach bus transportation services, 2021 senior day trips. Award contract, coach bus transportation services, 2021 senior day trips. Title 59 approval, resurfacing and repairs of various streets. Award contract, resurfacing and repairs of various streets. Award contract under state contract, Data Logic software. Award contract under state contract, Dell computers and software. Award contract under Houston Galveston Area Council Cooperative Pricing Agreement, 2021 Chevrolet Tahoe. Award professional services contract, historical architectural services, preparation of 2021 Preserve New Jersey Historic Preservation Fund grant. Award additional amount of funding for contract snow plowing services. Award emergency contract rock salt for snow and ice control. Award emergency contract rock salt for snow and ice control. Authorize refund and cancellation of taxes for disabled veteran block 4005 lot 16. Authorize settlement agreement Ames Well. Appoint registrar of vital statistics. May I have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Newton. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
You're muted.
Okay.
You're still muted. Oh, there you go.
Now I'm not muted. Yes, it was a yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we will move back to public comments, not to exceed 5 minutes per person. Dylan, who do we got?
Okay, first person is Scarpa. Please unmute, announce your name and address.
Linda Scarpa, 569 Northern Parkway. Gene, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. I was kind of cut off midway from my long-winded statement. So I just want to go back very quickly. This has to do with the EMT and the fire department. And you know what? The budget that you presented, and I sat through the entire thing, is a perfect segue to my personal belief. And I must say the belief of several people in Ridgewood who I've discussed this with. As you know, we have an EMT, which is very, very popular in town, and they do a lot of community outreach, not only helping the police, the firemen, but also doing outreach to current Ridgewood high school students. I have a wonderful program which instructs them how this whole thing goes. According to your budget, it's really not specified as to what the plan is for the fire department to pick up the slack and let the EMT people just do a per diem weekend thing, but only being paid per call. Per diem really means per day, but in actuality, you would be paying them per call. It seems to me that if you're going to hire 2 new fire people and not utilize what you currently have with underpaid part-timers and a lot of them volunteers during the COVID year, it doesn't seem economically a very good idea. Be that as it may, I certainly hope that the coming budget does specify exactly what that plan is, because this is a very important change and issue to all of the village. And I want to just say this in closing. Somebody mentioned the bagel fire and then the terrible bagel fire with the restaurants. I know that our fire department, I'm extremely proud of them. I don't want you to get the impression that I don't appreciate how hard our fire department works, but they were all hands on deck with other towns putting out that ferocious fire. But consider this, if that whole fire department was there, where were the EMT? They were helping heart attacks, stroke victims, drug overdose. You kind of get my point here. I understand what you're trying to do here, but I want you really to consider this and just isolate that portion out of your budget and really take a long, hard look of it's going to cost with 2 new firemen who they do a wonderful job right now, but taking your EMT people and putting them in this other type of situation, which I will tell you will erode that department totally. And I don't think that they will continue as a viable type of community project. That's really what I wanted to say. Any questions for me? No?
No, it's a public comment, so it's
Okay.
time to comment then. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Dylan?
Great. Next person is Rorik Hallaby. Please unmute.
Rorik Hallaby, 374 Evergreen Place. My wife and I have lived in Ridgewood for almost 52 years. And in my opinion, the village council that has run the town for the past 5 years is the most dysfunctional I can think of. The council has the anti-Midas touch, and everything it touches turns to ash. A few examples come to mind. The train station plaza, where a historic pocket park was paved over and 17 full-grown trees were cut down for 38 compact parking spaces that could have been accommodated in the Hudson Street garage. The Hudson Street garage could have been built far more economically with 1 extra floor 5 years earlier. And instead of a design that fit the architecture of the CBD, we have this massive white monolith with vulgar window treatments. The purchase of the Elks Club that has been described to me by a realtor as Ridgewood's worst real estate deal in over a decade. A central business district that continues in a downward spiral. Why should Westwood only have 4 empty stores when Ridgewood has 40? The 125th anniversary celebration fiasco. Establishing the Ridgewood Community Fund, supposedly a 501c3 that no one seems to know much about. The gutting of CRAB, Community Relations Advisory Board, and firing its long-term president when we need CRAB more than ever before. The defuncting of the Historical Preservation Commission, which hasn't met in a year. The defuncting of the Financial Advisory Committee, which we need more than ever. I have nothing but the highest regard for Bob Rooney, but Bob needs all the help he can get, and we need long-term vision as to what the town and the village should do long-term to be able to survive properly. The demoralization of many good employees at Village Hall. Dropping the ball on Glenwood Avenue. The Shadler disaster, including the rice notices being served on certain village employees. Why? Driving away Kensington that would have offered so many advantages to Ridgewood's seniors and the village's coffers. And yes, the pickleball kerfuffle, the health barn gamesmanship, and last but not least, the one village, one vote scandal. And I'm surprised not a single word has been told about what has happened. Now, what is the solution to this? I've been giving this a lot of thought. I would like to suggest that Ms. Susan Knudsen resign as village mayor and village council member. For the past 5 years, it was she who was in control of the council as mayor or deputy mayor. We cannot afford any more of her leadership. Along with Ms. Knudsen, I suggest that Ms. Heather Mailander resign as village manager and that the council rehire Roberta Sonnenfeld. We need an experienced business person to take over Village Hall, someone who would right the ship and who would restore the morale of the employees. Also, someone who is tough enough to stand up to the village council and to remind them what the Faulkner Act is all about. Lastly, and it pains me to say that, I suggest that Mr. Rogers also resign and that he be replaced with a major Hackensack law firm that would show independence from the village council. Looking over the appellate court ruling, Ridgewood cannot afford such an embarrassing Bush League experience. Thank you.
All right. Next person is Siobhan. Please unmute.
Hi, everybody. I'm calling Siobhan Winograd, 274 Ivy Place. I'm going to be incredibly direct. I'm calling because I'm freaking out about the number 4.7%. Being very personal. A lot of my friends don't attend this, and the next day, because I was an observer, they asked me for a recap. That is a tough number to send back out into the community. I fully empathize that you've had a tough year, and I think what's missing in the discussion is so has the community. You have members of this community who've lost their jobs, lost their loved ones, and a 4.7% tax increase is totally unacceptable. I understand you're dealing with a heavy hand, and as is the rest of the world, and I just think part of your discussion should be, so are your constituents. I thought that was missing from the discussion. The second part that I want to say is related to some of the things that I've been seeing. I'm a big fan of spending less, and some things that I've seen regarding the conversation, just to take it back home. You just got rid of extra revenue by telling outside revenue via pickleballers, don't come, don't play here, we don't want your money. So inconsistent. You took Stacy, who offsets our taxes by $50,000, and you've prolonged this discussion as if it's nothing. The Shedler project sat still for a year, yet we, the residents, paid for 2 bonds close to $2 million last year. That money has been sitting in a drawer, literally. Like I tell my kids, think of this money. We bonded it, we paid for the fees, and it sat. And, I don't want to pick, I feel bad, but those are serious red financial flags. To bond something, those are big, big bonds, like bigger than the library probably combined, or close. And no one checked in on them. No one checked in on the bond, which would have checked in on the project. And now you're telling us 4.7%. You're looking at a viable female-owned business in a park, and it's been a question. It's like been a belabored question. The pickleball thing, we need outside people to come here. We need to be welcoming. We need to take people outside of Ridgewood, use their money and offset our taxes. And that needs to be thematic for you guys. The other concern that I have with this, with the pickleball and the outsiders and everything, is that I told the story earlier. Limiting time is so out of touch with what our community is becoming. When my kids were little, I worked 3 days a week, and I only was available Monday and Friday. And most of the committees that I was asked to join had board meetings at 10 o'clock on Tuesday. And those meetings said to me, we don't want you then. To exclude the time to 2 days is to exclude members of the communities that hold jobs, have other priorities. It's so exclusionary. You're going to limit funding. And, again, not trying to pick, but we're sitting here 4.7% during a time where your constituents are suffering, dying, can't get vaccines. It's just an unbelievable number to translate backwards. I do want to thank Bernie. I think you're great for forcing it. I can't believe you're going to go forward to the public with the 4.7 number. And Pam, I want to thank you for standing up to the pickleball. You guys have a lot of issues, and the stopgate is always the financials. You should have checked it with pickleball. You should check it with Habernickel. Someone should have checked in on those bonds on Shedler. And I really encourage this council to do what Pam said, publish this and engage the public and tell them you're raising their taxes 4.7% during a pandemic. Thank you so much, Michael. Again, I was cut short. I I just think you've run the most efficient meeting. You've been super polite. I do ache for your budgeting process, but I feel that it's been so much more efficient with you leading this, and I'm really grateful for it. Thank you.
All right, Dylan, anybody else?
Yep, one more. A Loving. Hello.
Good evening. It's A Loving here. Ann Loving, 342 South Irving Street. I'd like to thank you for all the work that you put in on the budget. I'm just awed by it. I did want to just but mention one thing, and that is the street sweeper that's proposed for purchase for the parking garage. It's kind of shocking to me that I guess that wasn't considered, because I remember there was consideration about whether there would be a fire truck that could get to the top of the parking garage or get into the parking garage, but I guess the street sweeper was never considered. $103,000 for sweeping up that parking garage. Now, I know I'm prejudiced against the garage, everybody knows that, but a parking garage doesn't, in my opinion, generate the same amount of street dirt as a street would. You don't have cars zipping back and forth and all the tire dirt kicking up. It just strikes me as quite an expense. And I also don't know if you looked up this unit that you're talking about purchasing, but my husband did while the meeting was going on, and it doesn't look like it has a suction feature. It looks like it just sweeps. So I'm not sure what would happen to the empty water bottles or whatever other garbage might be up there. So I know that this is really minor in the scope of your budget, but I thought you might want to take a look at that prior to the final budget approval. And again, I sincerely appreciate everything that you're doing, and have really nothing but accolades for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Dylan, anyone else?
Yes. Actually, they just lowered their hand. Anybody else wishing to speak, please raise your hand. All right. Got one more. Says Lil. Please unmute. Please state your name and address.
Lillian Blood, 250 North Maple Avenue, part of the pickleball people who live in town. I agree. The amount of time that we should be able to play should be every day. Maybe not early in the morning until late at night, but certainly during hours that are suitable for people who work to play after work, and for people who don't want to play in the middle of the sun, the day when the sun is shining. So, and as far as people from out of town coming to play, the non-residents weren't any noisier than the people who play. And we're not very noisy people. The sound yesterday that I was participating in was they had us playing with two different kinds of balls. They had us just talking. And as far as I know, none of the sound was generating further than the pickleball courts. And I'm pleased that Pam came yesterday, and I think one other council person came. But we enjoy playing pickleball. We're not out there screaming. We're just hitting the ball back and forth. So I would like this resolution for how many hours we play and what days we play to be only phase one, and to reconsider it after we start playing. Thank you.
Thank you. Dylan, anyone else?
Showing no others.
Okay, I do have one written comment.
Okay.
It's from Richard Brooks of 777 East Ridgewood Avenue. Dear Mayor and Council, on February 23rd, 2021, the Parks, Recreation, and Conservation Board voted unanimously to communicate the board's support for Health Barn USA and the renewal of the organization's lease to the Ridgewood Village Council. As chair, I am submitting this letter on behalf of my fellow members of the PRC board. Health Barn USA is a tremendous asset to the village of Ridgewood. Under the leadership of nationally known nutrition and dietitian expert Stacy Antine, Health Barn USA is instrumental in the education and health of Ridgewood residents of all ages. Hundreds of Ridgewood families have enjoyed the warmth and professionalism that Stacy and her staff bring on a daily basis to deliver nutritional information absolutely necessary to enjoy a healthy life. Health Barn's innovative and empowering programs further emphasize their significance as we deal with the COVID pandemic and learn to adjust to our new normal. As a village, Ridgewood has always strived to put the education, safety, and well-being of its residents first. Health Barn USA epitomizes each of these objectives and serves to benefit everyone, all ages, with a strong and concise message. Here are 3 key facts to consider. 1, nutrition education is a vital part of a comprehensive health education program that empowers children with knowledge and skills to make healthy food and beverage choices. Studies indicate that the earlier a child is engaged in these processes and becomes involved in activities that are associated with food and beverage choices, lifelong healthy lifestyle habits emerge. 2, current childhood obesity stats for children and adolescents aged 2 to 19 years, the prevalence of obesity is 18.5%, or about 13.77 million children and adolescents. Obesity prevalence is 13.9% among 2 to 5-year-olds, 18.4% among 6 to 11-year-olds, and 20.6% among 12 to 19-year-olds. CDC, February 2021. The need for Health Barn programs is obvious and increasing. And 3, lifestyle changes are here to stay after the pandemic. And while no foods or dietary supplements can prevent it or cure a COVID-19 infection, healthy diets are important for supporting strong immune systems. Good nutrition can also reduce the likelihood of developing other health problems, including obesity, heart disease, diabetes, and some forms of cancer. It's important to note that Health Barn's presence in Ridgewood is strongly consistent with the village's reputation as being a cutting-edge community that is known for providing an array of innovative choices for families who live here. Obviously, Health Barn garners tremendous positive publicity for the community, as evident most recently with the announcement of a $1 million grant to provide financial support to Ridgewood restaurants preparing and distributing food for the needy. The program, sponsored by the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, empowers Ridgewood restaurants to provide food assistance where it is needed most, not only in our community, but throughout Bergen County. Additionally, the partnership between the village's Parks and Recreation Department and Health Barn USA received statewide accolades in 2017 from the New Jersey Parks and Recreation Association for the Award for Excellence in Programming in the Wellness category for the Healthy Celebrations programs. One of our PRC board members, Frank Mortimer, a nationally known beekeeper and authority on the subject, notes that Health Barn USA plays a major role in Ridgewood's Bee City USA certification. Importantly, the Bee City certification is a Parks and Recreation Department initiative that the Village Council supported unanimously by ordinance in September 2017. According to Mr. Mortimer, thanks in part to Health Barn USA, Ridgewood is New Jersey's first Bee City, and Ridgewood is the first in the United States Northeast region. Furthermore, according to Mr. Mortimer, I routinely get inquiries from other towns looking for guidance on becoming a Bee City, because they all know that we were the first. Every year during the National Pollinators Week, Ridgewood beekeepers conduct educational events to maintain professional certification, and Health Barn USA is an enthusiastic participant, with founder Stacy and team serving as a member of the program committee. In closing, it is the firm conviction of the Parks, Recreation, and Conservation Board that Health Barn USA is a vital member of the Ridgewood community and has had an incredibly positive impact on the lives of the thousands of residents who have taken advantage of their programs. When the Habernickel Family Park was opened in 2012, it was called Ridgewood's New Jewel. The addition of Health Barn USA 3 years later was an innovative and insightful move that not only enhances Ridgewood's core values of strong family health and welfare, but supports the Parks and Recreation Department's mission to provide as many healthy options as possible in Ridgewood's public spaces. Health Barn USA is a gem of a partner that touches and positively impacts all generations of residents. It is a resource that Ridgewood cannot replicate or replace. The Parks, Recreation, and Conservation Board unanimously and strongly supports the renewal of the Health Barn USA multi-year lease. Respectfully, members of the Parks, Recreation, and Conservation Board Richard S. Brooks, Chair, Dave Sales, Co-Chair, Mary Mogerly, Frank Mortimer, William Riker, Ashley Chauvin, and Nancy Bigos, PRC Director.
All right, thank you, Heather. I'll close public comments, but then I'd like to make 2 comments myself. So I believe I made these same comments on Monday, but since nobody was watching that public meeting with the budget, I'll make them again. It's, you know, people sat through 5-6 hour budget meetings leading up to that. We went through every department line by line, and then nobody tuned in for the last meeting where this number was first discussed. So that's like sitting through a movie and then getting up 10 minutes before the end and saying, well, I don't want to see the end. So my point that I made that evening, and I'll state it again, was that we introduced the budget and we let people comment since nobody was watching it that night, and put everything out there because we want input from the residents, because we have some hard decisions to make if 4.7% of an increase is really unacceptable. So we want to hear from the residents. We had one period to comment after the budget was introduced this evening. We have a March 24th meeting. So there's public comment before and after where you can comment however you want on the budget. There's the April, there's another, I believe there's another work session in April. So there's 2 more public comment periods for residents. So that's 4. Then there's the April public meeting. So then you have a public comment period before the hearing where you could comment on the budget. And then again, council members, village hall employees, everybody's reachable by email or telephone call from now until April. So there's really, we're putting these things out here, and there's ample opportunity for everyone to comment. And I know I speak for everyone. We encourage everyone to send as many comments as you possibly can. And, we'll see what we have to do from there. The second comment I'd like to make is I've gotten some compliments, so to speak, for how I run the meetings. I'm really doing nothing any different than Mayor Knutson does. I'm reading off the same script, going through the same thing. There's really no difference. All this is a backhanded way for people who really hate the mayor to kind of insult her by complimenting me on the way I run these meetings. Let's not forget that the same people making these comments are the ones who ran the 2018 campaign against us. It was basically a smear campaign based on lies. It had absolutely nothing to do with any issues in the village of Ridgewood. So because these people have this bias against the mayor and just hate her, they're using this opportunity to give her to ding her and to insult her. And I want to say that I have absolutely it's been an honor to serve with Susan Knutson since 2014 on this village council. I've never seen anyone work harder or tirelessly on all village issues, big or small. And she really goes above and beyond and puts in more hours into this than I could or I've seen. So that's really all I have to say. So let's take, unless anybody else has something else to add, we could take a resolution to go into close.
I actually do want to say something, Mike. I mean, I agree with everything you said, absolutely 100%. I do want to bring up the pickleball courts. Just as far as I know, when Nancy Bigos came last week and she presented to us the compromise that the pickleball players and the residents in the area have worked very hard on. They've had multiple meetings. This has been months of conversations, and this is the compromise that they came up with. I don't think we should change the compromise that all parties were involved in. We are just following the recommendation of the director of Parks and Rec. So, once it goes through, if we find out that there could be more play or less play, whatever, that's fine. But this is the recommendation that came from the director based on many meetings with all parties involved. So I think we should go with it. And the other thing I do also want to reiterate on the budget, and we were begging people on Monday, hey, anybody out there, please comment. We were like struggling. We had many conversations. Do we not hire people? Do we fire people? Do we put them on furlough? Do we make everybody bring the garbage to the street? Do we have garbage one day a week? Do we have recycling once a month? We talked about so many things. So anybody listening now, please go back and watch Monday's meeting. Look how hard we tried. Like what, please give us suggestions. How do we get the budget down? We talked about so many things. If anybody else has any ideas, please tell us. And I will also agree that I have known Susan Knudsen for years. Before I was on the council, I see how hard she works. I can't believe the number of hours she puts in on a daily basis. It's incredible. I mean, there's practically no pay at all. If you had to divide her hours by the pay she got, I'm sure it would be less than a penny an hour. That's how much time she puts in. She loves this town, and it's a disgrace that, whatever. I'll just end it like that. Thank you.
I just actually will be remiss if I don't. Well, first, thank you to Deputy Mayor and to Councilwoman Reynolds. I actually just I would be remiss if I didn't thank my Village Council colleagues, Heather Maylander, Matt Rogers, village staff. The past week has been an incredibly difficult one for my family, and the overwhelming support has been heartwarming and very much appreciated. So thank you, everyone. We will continue to do our good work. And as the Deputy Mayor pointed out, this has been the slings and arrows since 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20. They'll keep coming. We'll keep dodging. We'll keep ducking. It's fine. The big world out there knows we work hard. We're doing a great job. You all are doing a great job. So we really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you. So with that, we'll take a resolution going to close.
Okay. Be resolved by the Village Council of the Village of Ridgewood that the Village Council meet in closed session on March 10th, 2021 at 8 p.m. or soon thereafter as the matter on the agenda can be reached. And that said closed session be held via Zoom teleconferencing due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Be it further resolved that the matters to be discussed in closed session are limited to legal matters to include one village, one vote litigation, and personnel matters to include boards and committees. These matters are allowable under NJSA 10:4-12 at sec. And be it further resolved that the minutes of this meeting shall be made available to the general public when such matters have been deemed completed by resolution of the Village Council. I have a motion.
So moved.
A second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
See you soon.
Yep.
Matt, do you have the closed session invite? You're muted.
I don't see it, Dylan.
I'm gonna send it to you. I wasn't sure if I sent it to you. I'll send it to you right now.